Welcome to another episode of Inside Marine. This week, I'm speaking to leading British entrepreneur and CEO and founder of Borrow a Boat, Matt Ovenden. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hi, James. Yeah, good.
Good. Well, look, thanks very much for coming along and chatting to me today. I'm really excited to be kind of talking through, the journey, certainly over the last few years and before that as well. So that's where we like to go. That's where we like to start. We like to go right back to the beginning. And I'm really interested to hear about how you got into the marine industry in particular and your journey up to that point.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, because I'm a chartered engineer by training. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I've had 3 startups before this one. I guess the thread through my career has been innovation and technology, and always looking for opportunities to use technology to bring innovation to industry sectors, basically, and bring growth and bring being technology as a force for good. I had a sustainability consultancy. I used to work for London Underground years ago. I was a mechanical engineer there. I started to run the innovation technology team across transport for London Underground mainly. And we implemented various technology projects that brought lots of good benefits to business. That led me on to a sustainability consultancy called Bright Green Shoots, which we worked with a number of blue chip clients for a number of years. We'd worked with Philips Electronics, IKEA, The Body Shop, Cummins Engines, a whole range of those sorts of clients doing their sustainability strategy, but energy technology in particular, applying energy and renewables. And then the next business sort of spun out of that. There was such demand for renewable energy at the time. We had feed-in tariffs. I began implementing lots of solar and wind projects and then wind farms. So we launched a specific wind farm business in 2011. We developed a lot of wind turbine and wind farm sites all over the UK. And we touched on solar farms, mainly wind. And there was a lot of growth through that period. The third business was an extension of that. When the UK market was kind of saturated with renewables and then scaling back the incentives, we went off-grid on renewables and started building renewables in the Caribbean. Worked on a number of eco-island projects, including the Isle of Sark in the English Channel, Necker Island with Richard Branson, Palm Island, Petit St. Vincent. We franchised this business in the Caribbean. It was a JV with an American solar business. We worked on one of the first large-scale wind turbine projects in the Bahamas. Off-grid island projects, and I exited that business in 2016. But I wasn't necessarily going to come to boating, but I was always looking for the next step. I was happy to change industry, and at the time, I think renewables had sort of reached a certain point where the oil price was very low, and some of the sort of margins for growth were changing. And I was looking for the next industry sector, but also the next technological trend. And at the time, this was 2016. We're seeing the boom in marketplaces that we've all lived through over the last decade. The smartphone revolution, they're calling it, where we can use our phone to basically find ourselves a taxi, find ourselves a flight, book ourselves an apartment, what they call the app economy, the smartphone revolution, driven by marketplaces, driven by bringing convenience to customers, flexibility, choice, value, ease of booking. Things became easier never to book. And I was actually instantly on a boat one day thinking of separately buying a boat, because I actually grew up boating, did a lot of boating when I was growing up. And I got young kids and I wanted to get a boat to get them into it. And I was trying to scratch my head in what industry is right for disruption, and what could we help? And suddenly, a bit of a moment, it was boating. Boating didn't have any marketplaces. We looked at charter, looked at the cost of ownership and saw issues there, sort of not particularly attractive to new boat owners coming in based on usage amounts. Looked at the charter in the UK, and at the time, for example, we were looking at a catamaran for friendly for groups and kids, and you couldn't charter a catamaran in the UK back in 2016. You can now through Borrow a Boat, but you couldn't then. Suddenly thought, wow, charter's kind of not fit for purpose as a proper sort of alternative to ownership. And then you just see these marinas full of boats, often not being used. And you think, what a waste, all these underutilized assets. And then, you know, there are a lot of catamarans in my local marina, but none of them I could use. So that's why we came up with the idea of a sharing economy marketplace. We thought, let's unlock these underutilized assets. Let's bring new boats into charter. And let's ultimately make charter easier, because there wasn't really a sort of center of gravity for charter in the UK or actually globally. You know, charter's massive in the Med and the Caribbean, but there was nowhere to go. So, right, I want my boat, where do I go? And so we started off with this concept of initially, let's launch peer-to-peer and make boat charter easier in the UK and the Med, and it sort of just grew from there. We got such a reaction. We were the first to pioneer peer-to-peer charter in the UK, and that went down extremely well. We launched at the London Boat Show in January 2017. We also had lots and lots of charter companies asking to list, saying, look, can we come on as well, please? You know, there isn't a marketplace for us, and customers need to find us, and if you can bring customers. And we realized that the wider opportunity was to be the marketplace for boating, and that's kind of where we've evolved to now. And we're now where we are now is we're one of the world's biggest marketplaces, 35,000 boats listed worldwide. And we have peer-to-peer in there, and that brings us extra choice and value. And ultimately, we're going down that route, making boating easier than it used to be, and easier to access for more people via their phone at short notice, to browse what's available and to book and get boating.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, just going back, you know, we will absolutely come to Borrow a Boat, and really the exciting work we're doing that. I'm really interested to just stay, you know, for a moment before that kind of choice that you know, to move from working in the underground to actually making that move into entrepreneurship and setting up your own business. Was that a conscious decision? We see entrepreneurship becoming more and more of an option for people, and it always fascinates me that people's, you know, journey where they make that leap, which, you know, they then tend to not go back from. And I'm interested to hear, you know, really what was the driver for you, you know, to make that leap?
Yeah, okay. I mean, so at the time, I was working in the part of London Underground that was privatised at the time through the public-private partnership, and there was a real focus from private sector coming in on efficiency, bottom line savings, and this was a clear sort of motivation to deploy technology, to deploy innovation for real, tangible bottom line benefits. And that was the brief of the team I ran for 4 to 5 years, which was an innovation technology team. We produced great results. I mean, we saved 55 million off the bottom line for the underground through various projects. There was a change going on in London Underground in 2009, where they were renationalising everything basically. And I was aware that the focus on innovation technology was going to change. Let's just put it that way. There'd be less of a focus on implementing it and bottom line savings. And I'd spent several years doing that, being confident in what we can do in delivering technological change to large organizations and pitching it to the board on a regular basis. And I just thought, look, we've had such a good run here. If this is the emphasis is going to change here, I can do this for other people. You know, I can do this. And we'd learned a lot about clean technology and green tech at the time. Was such a hot thing. It still is now, 12 years later. But at the time, it was really emerging things like LED lighting and energy saving technologies would transform how buildings consume energy. And I knew that I could get in the front into any boardroom and pitch these green technologies. Then the people would go for them and I could implement them. So it's just kind of a case of let's take this to a wider audience. And yeah, it was obviously it's a big decision to make. It's out of the comfort zone. It would have been far easier to stay there. I had the final salary, pension, and everything there. I could easily just stayed there. But I was seeking challenges. I guess I was seeking new challenges. We've been challenged for years. Wanted to take it on to the next level. And that's how I ultimately jumped ship and started up. Daunting at first, perhaps, but just threw ourselves into it and built a team. And people, as soon as they saw what we were offering, reacted well to it, as I kind of knew they would. So it was, we got off to a good start, and it went pretty well.
And I mean, and like you said, I think you're on your your kind of third business. Is it now? Is that right?
Fourth, yes, but some of the others were sort of linked.
Yeah. I mean, over that time, is there anything in particular that you're particularly proud of that journey, so far?
Yeah. I mean, I was proud to build up a brand each time in a new sector. I'm not afraid to cross industry sectors. A lot of skills are transferable from one industry sector to another, as you all know, as someone who's in recruitment, of course. But pitching technologies and investment in tech to save business money, it could be done in almost any business that's running a building that's employing people. So the transferable skills of project management, communicating what you're doing, implementing, delivering technology, working with technology providers to provide a good end result for the customer ultimately, and bottom line value and benefits, real tangible benefits. It's common across sectors. So, I think in my career, I got a good grounding in the experience at London Underground for 7 or 8 years working there, and working at quite a pace for those few years we were running that team, and then just took a lot of those skills on and built an established sustainability consultancy over several years, then built an established renewables wind farm business, which picked up a lot of institutional investor money to fund large projects, and then built a brand in the island off-grid renewable space. And I'm proud of each step we made, really. And then I wouldn't have expected to end up in the marine industry, but we just followed the pattern of technology innovation and crossed boundaries across sectors, and we ended up in boating and with this marketplace trend. And this business has got an energy like no other, and it's the right thing. It's clearly where there's a need, build it and they will come, sort of thing. If there's a technical need for it, then the customers will want it.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, because a lot of people come into our industry because it's their passion first, whereas obviously you've come into it seeing the opportunity and with the technology interest, but the bonus was there was also a passion there as well, right?
Yeah, there's a bonus. It also meant I knew something about it. So I knew a bit about boats, and I knew what it was like to charter a boat or to not be able to charter a boat. I guess so that was the advantage. I thought, okay, this is something I know a lot about. I think you've got to be a bit careful. You've got to follow your passions, but obviously it's got to be the right business decision as well. I wouldn't have done it just because I like boating. If there wasn't really an opportunity here to bring innovation to the sector. But it's helped along the way. I think if I was doing this and I didn't know anything about boats, it would be very, very difficult.
Okay, interesting. And is that because just boating it's such a unique market? Is it elaborate on that, because there's a lot of perception that actually you can't, it's very hard to work in the marine industry or in boating if you've never worked in it at all. And I'm interested to get your take on that.
I think it just, I mean, if you haven't been on the customer side of it, so you don't know what is going through the customer's mind when they're chartering or thinking of chartering. You don't know catamaran from a monohull, from a power cat. You don't know. You're very much just be learning as you go. I guess as someone who'd done it, I knew what the boats were. I knew what customers would be after, what they would want to see for us and with Borrow Boat. You know what information you need to present to the customer. You know what they would want to see to be confident enough to book. You also know what the charter companies ultimately, how they might operate and what they're looking for. And without that, I mean, you could have come into it without doing it, I suppose, but it just would have been harder, I think. It would have been more of a steep learning curve. Yeah,
absolutely. And the Borrow Boat brand, over the last few years is, it's become such a global leader and a really recognized brand. And since from that setting up, it'd be really great to hear what's the journey been over the last few years, for example. How have you got the business to the point it is now?
It's been quite a roller coaster ride. This business has just hit the spot, really, that it was the right thing at the right time. I think the industry was crying out for it, and we came along with it. So from the moment we launched it at London Boat Show, where we just sort of called a press event, and I stood up on a little bit of a pedestal thing on our stand and just said, look, I was there with some friends helping me out on the stand at the time. We just said, we're trying to make boating more accessible. We just believe it should be easier. We think you should be able to book it through a smartphone, and you should be able to browse what's available, and it shouldn't be difficult. You should be able to see the choice. And we want to help the industry, and we ultimately sort of communicated that we were a force for good, that we were going to help customers, we were going to help boat owners because they can monetize their boat when they're not using it. We help charter companies, help marinas because we can bring more people in, footfall into the marinas. It helps all the other businesses in marinas. We'll help boat sales ultimately because more people get into boating, more boats will get sold. And we sort of realised on that first show that all those different parts of the industry liked it, which was great. So from there we went off. We've raised capital. We've done a number of funding rounds. I mean, that first year was very much just a tiny team, mostly just me and some people helping me at the beginning. And then we built more of a team out later that year. We did Southampton Boat Show in 2017. We did our first crowdfund campaign at the end of that year to raise 200K. That campaign just took off and blew us away and went to nearly 500K, overfunded by nearly 230-something%. And that was, a real vote of confidence from the market and in the investment community. And so each stage has sort of gone from strength to strength. Then we had a bigger team in 2018. We went on, we grew numbers of boats, grew our tech stack, improved the product, did more bookings, grew the team, all those things. End of 2018, we did another round to raise capital. With this business, it's always a journey to you're building the product, you're investing in the product over a period of time. So you're going to cyclically sort of raise capital. And we went back in 2018, and we're blown away further this time because that 1.5 million was raised. We had a VC invest, large number of investors again. And that just catapulted us onto another level for 2019, where we rebuilt a lot of the tech into a sort of enterprise level. We had a much bigger team, did a lot more marketing. Again, built the inventory of boats, got the customers. Just we're fighting on growth on so many fronts. Is what it's like. But it makes it very exciting to be in a business like that. It's not for everyone, I'd say that. Some people find the pace of it too intense, too much. So we very much had to choose the right people to join us who are suited to that environment. Where you're going to be solving multiple problems all the time on multiple fronts to grow, to make the customer service better, to list more boats, to raise capital, to build a team. It's just growing on all those fronts. 2019, we really had a lot of momentum by then. We were the headline sponsor of the Southampton Boat Show that year. We partnered with them on a marketing campaign all summer. We were in 55 tube stations all summer. We were doing a range of above the line digital marketing, grew our profile hugely. I think the brand awareness really broke through that year, and sort of everyone in the industry sort of knows who we are. You couldn't miss the logo at the Southampton Boat Show that year. That was great. Obviously, we've been challenged like everyone in the industry with the pandemic, which was certainly a curveball, and we had to react to it in a certain way. We've sort of in what we did in the sort of batten down the hatches a bit, but sort of dug in on the tech quite a lot. There was quite a lot of progress we were wanting to make on some really core fundamental parts of the technology. We did that. We traded it when we could. And we're excited this year to be sort of coming out of that, and we're certainly seeing those month by month it's improved, and we're having huge amounts of inquiries right now for this summer, thankfully. So that was a further challenge was the pandemic that's challenged everyone in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll probably circle back to that actually, but your business and a lot of the success has been through you kind of driving that funding and those funding opportunities, and that's very well kind of documented. And but in a very traditional industry where your business is very focused on, and the funding and the technology in the marine industry, that funding option isn't, you know, we don't see it a lot. And I'd love to just hear a bit about what you feel has been, you know, what needs to be the focus for somebody going into, you know, considering, you know, funding and that sort of thing. You know, how do you get the success that you've had from that?
Yeah, so I mean, raising capital in the way we have is very much for a high growth tech business. There's definitely a lot of opportunities to raise capital if you are that sort of business. It just can be a high growth business, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to be tech orientated, but it tends to be. If you're bringing a clear value add somewhere in the chain, and you can communicate that and you can articulate that well to investors, ultimately they will back it. That's simple, kind of it very boils down to that at the very simplest level. If you just demonstrate that you can do it. You can't just raise it on an idea. So we raised our biggest round when we were sort of a year in, really. No, not our biggest round, but our first main round was a year in. And we had been in the market. We've been showing that we can do it. We've been showing that the market wants it. We've done it with limited resources. We showed a certain amount of determination, resilience. I mean, they're looking at you as well, seeing would they back this person? Is he going to sort of give me my money back at the end of the day? Do I trust him? So you've got to show that you can be pretty resourceful, and get something going and demonstrate that you can get it to work. Get some customer traction, get some amounts, whatever the business might be, and ultimately investors are straightforward in that, like, if they can see the opportunity and you can articulate it, you can raise capital. There tends to be a business that is best suited to it is where you've got big growth vision for it. You know, if you were just sort of going to eke out a bit of organic growth, you might not go for sort of crowdfunding and that sort of route. But for us, with a marketplace for boating, you know, it needed to be big to work. Marketplaces need scale. You can't just do a little parochial marketplace over here that's just on thin margins. Doesn't work as a marketplace. So for us, it was always about this has got to become a certain size, and therefore we need money to do that. And that was the conversation went with investors. Yeah, and we've employed a well-trodden sort of route for raising for technology companies. Just happened to have applied it to this industry, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And on the technology front, I mean, is the technology still developing very rapidly at the moment? Are you developing your technology, or is that kind of plateauing out for now and you're focusing on other things? Just love to hear a bit more about that.
I mean, it's constantly developing. It's sort of never ending, actually. Yeah. We have an internal tech team now. We've got software developers and coders in-house. Just as the nature of it, you need to rebuild parts of the stack as you become bigger and bigger. You look at the infrastructure behind marketplaces that are global, like your Expedias, your Booking.coms of the world. They've had a vast investment in this stable technology that works very well for customers and can handle huge amounts of requests and transactions in one go. You don't obviously start trying to build something like that. You build a lighter version and you improve it. You rebuild parts of it from the ground up. And we've been through some difficult but necessary rebuilds where you have to sort of bite the bullet and do it. But we're always evolving the customer experience, because this is where you get better performance out of it. Things better conversion rate. You know, customers, if the flow is easier, they're more likely to click through. You'll get more bookings, and you can constantly test and A/B test and evolve and improve, and that will keep on going as we grow. We're growing across country. We've got a dedicated US site. We launched in America 2 months ago. We're just launching in Canada and Australia. And we built dedicated sites for each country. We've actually got curated landing pages for each country, for example, to serve those customers better. There's dedicated marketing strategies for each country. The tech will keep on improving, and it'll just, for the customer, it's going to win. It's going to get better and better and better, basically. Easier and easier, more choice, easier to book as we evolve.
Yeah. And how difficult is it to get that balance right between maybe a customer that is maybe more used to more of a sort of a face-to-face type interaction when chartering a boat versus your kind of business model, which is very, very technology heavy. And, you know, you compare it, you mentioned, you know, sort of Ubers, and obviously you've been compared to Airbnb before, you know, the Airbnb for boats. And, you know, is that a difficult balance? Is that a challenge with some of the customers?
Yeah, it's a bit of it's a careful consideration, I'd say, and you've got to be careful what assumptions you make. You can't assume that everyone's just going to click through and pay on your website without speaking to anybody. But certainly, no, we don't do away with customer service, but investing in the technology is about presenting, bringing transparency to the market, so people can browse their options. They can filter by manufacturer, by features of the boat. They can say, I want a furling mast in Greece with a barbecue on the back of the boat, and filter by these things and find their boat. So, you know, that the technology is helping them find their boat, so they can find it themselves, rather than in the past having to phone up a broker and say, can you go away and find me a boat, or what have you got, or you have to make do with whatever they happen to have, whoever you happen to spoke to. But we don't, you know, sometimes people find a boat and then our customer service team help them to book from there. And certainly with the bigger crude bookings, which we're doing more and more of. So we've got our sub-brand Borrow Boat Plus, and they're all crude boats. They go up to super yacht level, very large, you know, skippered monohulls and catamarans between 60 to 900 foot range, and then super yachts as well. Those sorts of customers, definitely we provide a different level of customer service with them. And that was always essential, really. You could never assume that those sorts of boats would just click and book. They don't. I mean, some customers happen to be fairly, do that a little bit more, but you know, we generally serve different customers in slightly different ways. Yeah, and we're designing the site with that in mind.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that, you know, almost right at the beginning, the charter companies were coming to you to list their boats, which sounded like it was a little bit unexpected at the time. And is that because you were just ahead on the technology, or that you were bringing something that they just hadn't kind of even considered before, or was that a natural change in the market? I mean, what do you think?
It's very much a sort of, yeah, there was no marketplace for boat charter in 2016. You know, there was, you know, some embryonic versions of it somewhere else in the world, but there was nothing in the UK. And we set out to do peer-to-peer charter. We did set out to list some charter company boats as well. But we were surprised by the demand from the charter industry. Yeah, I mean, we now list, you know, the whole Sunsail fleet, the whole moorings fleet, the Dream Yacht charter fleet, the biggest fleet in the world, all of the large, most of the Mediterranean charter boats that are on offer we have, and same for the Caribbean. And we, at the beginning, it was sort of, there was a point where we had to consider, you know, is this the right thing to do? You know, list loads of those. But then we thought, well, that's the customer. But you bring it back to the customer. Yeah, this is where you're adding the value. The customer, at the end of the day, wants choice. They don't really probably care whether it's a peer-to-peer boat or a charter boat. In fact, they might prefer it to be a charter boat some of the time. So when you bring that as your sort of check point, you go, well, absolutely, we should do it. You know, it would have been a bit silly to stick to the purest line of we will only list the peer-to-peer boats or something like that, which is sort of shooting ourselves in the foot a bit. You know, why not? You know, think of the customer. You know, you're bringing choice, you're bringing availability, accessibility of boating. There's going to be more flexibility and availability if you list all the charter boats. You know, you can have a more effective marketplace. Yeah, you need numbers, you need scale. So it's a very kind of quick decision when you think of it like that. So we fully embraced it, and that's given the immense choice that's there, and it ran and ran. And why wouldn't you as a charter company? Because you want to reach more customers. You know, unless your own marketing gives you a fully filled order book. But they can also save on marketing if we can bring them customers, so we can help charter companies.
And even over the last sort of 5-6 years that the business has been going, do you see any differences or trends in the customer, the type of customer, the experience that they want over that time?
We're perhaps seeing, I mean, we're perhaps seeing more people come to boating kind of seen that perhaps through the pandemic. So maybe we'd like to think we'd reach outside of the core marine customer market, because we cross into the sort of travel market. So you can have a skipper on any of our boats. I think, when we advertised in London and some of the things we've done, we've certainly pulled in people. We do get a lot of customers coming to us who've done it before and say, how does it work? Can I have a skipper on board? Typically, there's a journey they can go through with us where they can start with a sort of skipper charter. If they enjoy it, they can get their qualification, come on their boat, and if they like that even more, they can end up buying a boat and listing it. So there's that sort of evolution they could have. I think we are reaching parts of the demographic that perhaps the traditional charter offering didn't. As we sort of cross over, we've got static charters, so people can use our boats as a place to stay without necessarily sailing them. And some people do. Some people use them as a hybrid. So I'll have a skipper for a few days, I'll sleep on board for the rest of the day, and that'll be my villa. Others happy to have a skipper for the whole time. But yeah, I think we're sort of reaching more and more parts of the demographic. I'm seeing maybe some more millennials and the sort of younger folk coming in, but also newbies to it who are older as well. We just see this as an accessible way in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're I asked this question to quite a lot of the people that I talk to. We're coming out of COVID, and we're obviously seeing this huge new interest in boating, and you even said that you've seen a lot of that kind of first time boater giving it a go, and you're clearly making it more accessible, for those first timers, which is great. I see this as that this industry in general has a huge opportunity right now with this new customer, this newfound interest, and clearly this summer is going to be busy, and hopefully that will continue into the winter, and then even next summer. But what does the industry have to do to really kind of lock this newfound interest in boating in? How do we make this a long-term opportunity for all of us?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of thinking about this with British Marine in 2019 when they published the futures report about the accessibility of boating, and it showed that I think 1 in 4 people in the UK wanted to go boating in 2018, but only 1 in 12 did, or something, because it's not perceived. At its worst, the boating industry can appear aloof and uninviting, and there can be this sort of attitude of we don't want you at the boat show if you're not a serious customer who's going to buy £100,000 boat or higher. There can be, and I think in the past, some of the atmosphere around the shows and in the industry has perhaps put people off for being a bit too much like that. Whereas we very much came in it the other way. Let's try and get more people to the show. Let's try and get more people down from London for a day out. And then that worked. That actually chimed very well with British Marine at the time, and with what we did with the Southampton Boat Show that year, where we made it, we particularly marketed it far and wide. I think the highest ever footfall the show's had that year. And they're continuing that. British Marine, to their credit, they've launched the website on the water, which we've sort of helped with in places where we're actually on that website as well. Which is about getting new people to participate in boating. So they're very much coming on the theme as we are. And I think the industry has to realise that growth will come from increasing participation and making it more inviting and welcoming. And if more people come and charter, ultimately more people get into boating. That will filter through to more boat sales for those who want more boat sales, and it will filter through to more marina berths, and that will filter through to more charter bookings and bigger charter fleets. And this is, the entry level has got to be accessible. And I believe we are driving at that and providing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that in recent weeks and months, you've been going through some merger and acquisition. Is that right? Is that part of the bigger plan? Are we going to see more on this? And I guess the question is, what's next for Borrow a Boat?
Yeah, the acquisition was a great step forward for us to work with Helm. I mean, they've got a great reputation in the industry, particularly for those larger, more luxury crude charters, and we've got Borrowboat Plus in that space. They're particularly complementary to that end of the market for us. So yeah, I mean, it's a sort of got strength in numbers ultimately, and we can drive change better together. Is sort of, and we can make a better offering together. And that's been very good. Yeah, we are looking at some other things at the moment. We haven't set out to do lots of acquisitions necessarily, but where they make sense, they make sense. We have set out to grow, and we've got ambitious plans to grow into 8 new countries this year, and we've gone into USA, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. We've now got dedicated sites to each of those, and we're launching in France, Germany, Spain, and Italy before the end of this year. This is the way to grow a global marketplace. Be more countries that offer it to more than, so far mainly it's been British people booking our boats, even though our boats were in over 65 countries. It's been mainly Brits chartering. But to build an overarching marketplace, you really need to be you can't just be a British marketplace, really, for the business to reach its potential. So we need American customers, Canadian customers, Australian customers. And we do constantly get people reaching out from those countries to list their boats and to help us in the country to promote it and to book. So they seem to want it, and so it's great. I think the natural next step is to build traction in the different countries.
Yeah. And is there any, I mean, obviously the countries you've listed there are, clearly boating is well established, and we obviously have the kind of the countries and the regions that we know are, I suppose, fast catching up. And do you see opportunity in places like, Asia and the Middle East, where there is boating, but at a huge scale, using a platform like yours as a way for those regions to really kind of get into boating?
I think, in the short term, we've been listing boats in. I remember we got our first catamaran in Japan a couple of years ago. We've got boats in Japan. We've got boats in China and Hong Kong. We've got a lot of boats in Thailand, Vietnam. So there's 2 steps to that. Firstly, getting the boats in those places because they're very attractive to English and American customers, Europeans. Secondly, actually targeting the customers in those countries. That's another step, obviously. I think, but there's going to be, to be the global marketplace. They are the ones who will get to after the main European economies. There was various other countries in Asia, in South America, that you'd consider to grow a global marketplace, which is ultimately our ambition, to become the best marketplace for boating worldwide. We need to have offering to as many countries as possible.
Great. So, I mean, one of the things we like to talk about on the podcast is leadership. And, any business owner or business leader in the last kind of 18 months, has had their own, very, very big challenges. And the challenges also, trying to go forward and be as successful as possible in a very different landscape. I mean, I'd love to hear kind of how you've approached as in your leadership role the last 18 months, and really what you see the challenges are kind of going forwards.
Yeah, we have had challenges in the pandemic, like so many people. With leadership, for a business like ours, which is growing very fast, it's very important to have a regular sort of narrative of what the plan is, what the vision is, and why we're doing it. And because, as I said earlier, it's not for everyone, this kind of fast-paced, fast-growth business. Some people would find it unsettling, don't like it's not as structured as some other roles can be in other industries. So when you're sort of on the fly, innovating, building things, there's moving goalposts, there's changing budgets, there's different moving parts of the puzzle, but you're all working together as a team. You've got to really keep the eye on the goal a lot. So I constantly talk about what we're setting out to do to the team, what our plans are, why we're going down the route, what stage we're at on that plan. I think the other thing that's been important in the last 18 months has been be supportive. I believe in empowering the staff so they delegate enough responsibility. They can feel they're really owning parts of the business and making good impact in it, but then supporting them at the same time, not just sort of empowering, delegating, and then letting them go, and just being disappointed if they don't do everything perfectly. You know, you've very much got to support a regular communication with everyone in the support role, a mixture of the support role and communicating the vision and what we're actually doing here has been the thing I think that's kept our team, the core of our team, together. Yeah.
Great. And one of the things the other thing that we really like to talk about on this podcast, which I personally believe is everybody who has is involved with the marine industry has a responsibility for is sustainability. And you're a global business, 35,000 boats, thousands of customers. I mean, what does sustainability kind of mean to you, and what do you see again, the sort of the challenges with that going forwards in our industry?
Well, sustainability, we've got a profound shift going on in our society, which is going to happen in our lifetime. I remember thinking this back in 2009, which is why I set up a sustainability consultancy then, because we could see technological direction of change was towards efficiency and lower carbon emissions, and climate change was as topical then as it is now. It's just that the acceptance of that wasn't so much then. It was more a battle to actually get anything over the line on this back in 2009. But I remember feeling very passionate about it then, thinking this is going to be the single biggest profound shift in the way we live in my lifetime. We've kind of got to do it by 2050, which I'll be approximately my retirement age. So I thought, this is going to be the biggest thing we look back on is that happened in our life. We'll be the generation who's got to do it. Or the next generation, it's too late. So it's going to need people to drive it. It's going to need technological change. It's going to need innovation. And that's why I set up a consultancy to do just that, and to spend a lot of years doing that. Spent 6 or 7 years doing purely that, getting low energy factories, getting people to convert to using renewables. So I've got a profound sort of sense of the importance of it. And that's why recently at Borrow a Boat, we've launched a sustainability strategy with a sustainable guide for charterers, which we launched with World Sailing Trust and DCAFARI, which is great. It's an industry first. We can make, in an industry that perhaps it's not the most obvious thing to think about when you go boating, but every industry needs to be thinking about this for us to change as a society. And that goes for boating. And there's part of sustainability is conservation and looking at how we treat our oceans. We know we've got a big issue with ocean plastics and ocean pollution. And so there are ways you can go boating which are a bit more synthetic and sensitive, and we're talking about that to our customers. Everyone who books a Borrow a Boat will receive our sustainable boating guide. We're working with Clean Sailors now, who are great, and a leading voice on cleaner boating, basically. But I think we've only got to do more of it. We're going to see shifts in this sector towards low energy boats. We may do something on the marketplace in due course to say this is more of an eco boat. This has got solar panels, wind turbines, it's got electric engines. There's things like that we can do and let the customers want it. And it's important to make them be able to select it. So then you drive the change, because if more people start booking those boats, then more people want to put those boats on. That's what we can do.
That's really interesting, because I've heard that a couple of times now. They're almost, like the eco rating for the boat, like almost, like you get with your house or your appliance, I mean, do you find customers are tuned into that or starting to be like requesting?
I think starting to be. I think it's not a big, massive part of the conversation in general with our customers, but we are starting to get requests for more. Has this got a wind turbine? Oh, you've got boats with electric engines, a little bit. but it's going to grow. I mean, this industry tends to be 10 or maybe 20 years behind the automotive sector in technological changes and the wider sort of property sector. And those industries are having massive change. Obviously, we're all going to be driving electric cars in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Homes are going to be on renewable energy and heating. Boating is going to shift in that way over time as well. And I think we'll see that through the manufacture of new greener boats.
Great. Well, I mean, it's great to hear the initiatives that you've got going there with Dee and everything, and I think you're clearly really well positioned to really spread that message just far and wide. So thank you for that. So look, we've talked about the journey, we've talked about the business and really what's happening next. But we like to kind of come bring things to an end, really just finding out a bit more about you, Matt, and one of the ways we do that is just asking our guests, what is your perfect weekend?
Perfect weekend. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm a family man. I've got 4 young kids under 10.
Wow, that's busy.
Yeah, busy life, busy household. My perfect weekend would probably be spending a great time with them, probably getting on the water somewhere. Yeah. Recently bought a small boat to teach the kids to sail, which we can trail to different places. It would probably be a fun day, with some water involved. Maybe in the UK, maybe in the Med, maybe in the Caribbean. With everyone having a lot of fun in the outdoors.
Yeah, getting outside.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, and the one final question we like to ask is, what we usually ask is if you were giving one piece of advice to somebody coming into the marine industry, what it would be. But I'm also, with your entrepreneurial background, would ask if you were to give a piece of advice to somebody who was considering setting up their own business or moving, into being more entrepreneurial in the marine industry. What piece of advice would you give that person?
I think if you've got a good idea that you believe in, that you genuinely, you looked at it, researched it, and you really believe you've got something, and go for it. What I would say. Don't if you're that way inclined, don't. But do your research. And when we first got this idea, I spent quite a bit of time researching it and looking at it, and it could have been that it wasn't sensible, but it did seem to be. And then it was, once you've worked out on paper that there's something here, this makes sense logically, the next step is to deep breath, like, are you going to do it then? Are you going to go for it? Okay. There's all kinds of uncertainties, and there's never a perfect time to start a business. There just isn't. You've never probably got enough startup capital or enough people to help you. But if the idea is sound and you've got an appetite to put the work in, and you think you're determined and resilient and passionate about it, just go for it, because so many people don't go for it. So if you're one of the ones who does, chances are, with enough determination, you will make it, and you will have a hell of an exciting time. It's a roller coaster ride, but very fulfilling, very satisfying, and you might get to a great point at the end of it as well, where you've made real change.
Thank you. No, really, really great advice. Well, look, Matt, it's been really, really great talking to you today and hearing about, the journey and the business and an incredibly exciting and unique business you've created and are growing there. So, huge congratulations on that. And it's going to be really interesting just to see how that story continues going forwards. And, hopefully you can come back again soon and we can have an update on how things are going.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, James. It's been fun.
Thanks. Great stuff. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.